Junction, Cedarville, Covington, Caspian, Name, Junction, Big Bay, Dollar Bay, Nobbin Way, Isabella, Limestone, Loriem, Barbo, Lucky Fella. Hi, this is Jim Isleib, retired MSU Extension Educator, and this is What's Up at UPREC on March 29, 2022. Today we'll be revisiting the renovation process on this old neglected apple tree here. We started the renovation process 1 year ago on March 29th, 2021. And the tree has responded to that aggressive cutback by putting out new shoots, lots of vertical growth, and we'll need to deal with that new growth by cutting it back, thinning it out. This is part of the renovation process. It's I'd say a 3-year process on this tree to get the tree back into balance. During the growing season this year, I stopped here and took some photos of the tree as it started to respond to that March renovation pruning. The first set of pictures were taken on May 7th. And you can see that at that time there was some bud development starting, but the tree had not really leafed out yet. I stopped again on June 11th, 2021, and there was a lot of sprouting taking place, a lot of vertical sprouts, a whole lot of regrowth happening on the tree. Then on July 19 through 22, I stopped a couple of times during those few days, and there was a good deal more vertical sprouting and the regrowth was becoming quite dense. I did not do any summer pruning during the growing season this year. Dormant pruning causes very vigorous regrowth, but summer pruning actually retards regrowth. It slows it down, stops it, and it can be a useful tool. You should feel free to review that original video. It's part of the What's Up at UPREC series. And I do give quite a detailed description of the tools that I use in that video, along with the 5-foot homemade orchard ladder, the tripod ladder. I'd be happy to send anyone that wants a copy of the plans for that ladder. It's a simple carpentry project from an antique farm carpentry book. So let me know if you'd like to have a copy of that. You can see the response that the tree has made to that initial pruning. Lots of new shoots, lots of vertical regrowth. Most of these shoots need to be removed. We'll try to strategically select shoots that we want to keep for fruit production and structure of the tree. This will involve a lot of cleanup. We are going to be removing quite a bit of small cuttings from this tree, and those cuttings need to be removed, taken away from the tree site. Preferably the cuttings would be burned or buried. If not, they should at least be removed a good distance from the tree because they can be a reservoir for disease and insect problems. I want to emphasize that this video is meant for hobbyists, landowners. This is not particularly a commercial-oriented educational video. It's meant for people that have old apple trees, maybe like this one, on their property and would like to improve the fruit production on those trees. It's easy to see that this tree has a lot of vigor. The new shoots are anywhere from 8 to 24 inches long. A lot of new shoots from the top near the cuts, the original large cuts that I made last year. And I'm very satisfied with the way this tree looks right now. It might take an hour or so for me to trim out and thin out a lot of these new shoots. I can do most of that work with a hand shear, maybe a lop. I don't think I'm going to need to use a saw unless I should decide to do take anything large out, which I don't think is going to be needed. One interesting thing that I want to point out is that there are deer in this area, white-tailed deer, and anything that is accessible for them, they are going to nibble off any succulent new buds and shoots, and it can be very damaging, especially for a young tree. This tree is tall enough so there's plenty of area on this tree that deer won't be able to reach. But just take a look at what they did to these new shoots. That's deer browse. They could reach that very easily, and they certainly did reach it, and they ate it. So there isn't going to be any opportunity for developing a lot of new growth down low where the deer can get at it. But fortunately, we can work on areas that the deer will be unable to reach. You can see that the top of the tree really has an awful lot of vertical regrowth. And that's not a problem. It's just simply a matter of staying after it for a couple of years until that regrowth slows down. Okay, we're going to demonstrate a couple of limbs and I'll discuss them as we go along. And then after that I will use a little time-lapse photography and speed up the process, and you'll see how I go about this. A rule of thumb that I use is the width of your fist is as close as any shoots should be. They should not be closer than that along the length of a branch. First of all, you'll notice that there are vertical shoots like these. We don't want those remaining in the tree unless we want to develop some new limbs using them as a base. So I'm going to take off most of this stuff. Just simply cut it off, making a good clean cut. Not exactly flush with the main limb, but leave a little bit of a bump there so that it will heal over well. That's meristematic tissue, and it has the ability to callus and heal over. This one's growing straight up. However, it wouldn't hurt me to leave a bit of this, leave some live buds so that this could develop a branch coming out this way. The rule of thumb, anything that's growing straight up out of a branch, anything that's growing straight down out of a branch, those are not especially desirable unless we have a plan to utilize them. But this one here, see, is growing, it's growing out horizontal to the ground. I'm going to save a bit of that one and try to develop a branch here. I'm taking this one out because it's growing underneath here, and we don't want any branches that grow right underneath other branches. I'll save a little of that one for future development. All right, getting back to taking out vertical growth. There's one, here's one. We got a lot of shoots out here at the end of this branch, and we don't really want that much. It will quickly become overgrown, and the whole process of renovation is to not have an overgrown tree, to have one that's got plenty of space in it for air and light penetration. So we'll just thin things out a bit. We don't want to leave stubs if we can help it. Now, these branches here, we have some parallel branches. We want to maintain some space between them. We don't need to take off all of the little shoots, but ones that are really going to be problematic next year or in future years, might as well take them off now. Okay, here we got one growing right on top of another. And I don't think the deer are going to necessarily reach this one. So I'm going to leave this one. We'll see if they can reach it next year. Here's a second branch that we'll use for another demonstration. Got shoots like this that are, you know, undesirable, ones that are growing out from the bottom and then shooting straight up. These are not something that we want to necessarily maintain and keep. So let's start by removing some of those. One thing about pruning is that once you cut it off, you can't put it back, obviously. So if you really have some doubts of whether or not something should go, leave it in. You can always get it next time. There's a lot of fresh buds on this growth here. I'm hopeful that they'll flower and make some apples this year. But I am interested in making sure that light can penetrate. Here's a good example of a branch that's growing right over another one. We'll take that off. Here's a classic example of a big vertical shoot that needs to come off. This branch is growing right directly underneath this larger one, and that's not a desirable situation. Okay, we'll take off some of this vertical stuff. Stuff that's growing down underneath will come off. Anything growing back into the main branch, that can come off. If I have a choice like this at the end of a branch, I'm going to opt for the one that's angling upwards out of reach of deer. Even if they grow down and then shoot back up, I just don't want all that vertical stuff. So we don't necessarily always need to cut it all the way back. You can leave a part of a twig, a new shoot if you want to. As I mentioned before, we may decide to keep all or parts of some vertical growth to use to initiate a new branch. So I'm going to select a little side shoot from this little vertical growth, and I'm going to cut off some of these little bitty branches, keep a couple, and hope that something will grow out this way. It very likely will. I may just keep this one and see how it develops, and maybe next year, if we like it, we'll keep it. If we don't, why, it'll be gone. But the great majority of these are going. That's what we planned when we did the initial renovation pruning, and this is just simply following through. If you don't follow through, your tree will become somewhat of a monster with just tons of vertical limbs and not very productive. It may make a lot of apples, but it won't make very good ones. Okay, I'm having a little bit of a challenge reaching that, so I'm going to get my orchard ladder. This makes it a lot more convenient to get at these higher locations in the tree. Gives you a better viewpoint. I'm still getting after these vertical ones, and you can see that I'm selecting a few that are not growing vertically with the idea of developing new branches from them. They should be more productive and they should be easier to manage. We need to clip back so that these branches are not entangled with each other, so that they have some room. I hope I'm making a little sense. I really ought to remove these little buds that the deer have gnawed on. They're messy, they're going to sprout, but they're going to get chewed off every year, and that's not good for the tree. Everything below about this level has been chewed off, and the tree is going to resprout again this coming year, and the deer are welcome to eat off those low sprouts, because we're just going to clean them up again every year. The renovation process takes quite a bit of effort for a few years, but it will slow down in time. Now you can see how we've cleaned up this couple of branches here. They're thinned out. The vertical growth is pretty much removed. There's still some in there, but there's going to be a lot better light penetration and a lot more opportunity for the tree to develop without being too crowded. This branch has a large number of very vertical shoots that I'm going to take off. You can see that I've removed most of those shoots. I have left a few side shoots, new ones, that I think may have some potential for development of new limbs. If I don't like them, next year I'll take them off. Okay, I'm going to just work my way around these lower branches that I can reach from the ground. We don't need to video the whole thing. I think you've got the idea of how I'm going about this, removing things growing vertically, either from the top or the bottom. Where I feel there might be an opportunity for a new branch, I'll save a little bit of vertical growth with a bud pointing in the right direction just below the cut. And we'll see how it goes after I get around as far as I can reach from the ground. Now I'm going to go up on the ladder and work on this upper part. And we really want the top of the tree to be thinned out so that light can penetrate down to the lower part. Typically, fruit trees bear most of their fruit on the lower branches. And if they are being smothered by the top of the tree, that's a very undesirable situation. I'll leave a little stub there to have something to work with. Okay, yeah, that's better. I'm trying to select nice vigorous shoots. Working on a big old tree can take quite a lot of effort, and it can be easy to get a little impatient and start taking chances with your own personal safety, reaching too far, or continuing to work when you're too tired. I'm getting to be quite a senior citizen, and I have to be cognizant of my own physical limitations. All right, I feel like we've thinned that out quite a little bit. This one's hanging down pretty far. We'll take it off there. I want to get those ones out, but I can't reach them conveniently from here. Let's see what I can do on this branch behind me. I want the new growth to be headed towards where there's light and space for fruit to receive direct sunlight. That's how I think about these things, as competitors for light and space. Another thing to think about is this tree is very unlikely to receive protection from pests, sprays, and so forth. So that means it's even more important to maximize airflow through the tree so that the foliage dries promptly after a rain, and that can help minimize fungal disease problems. Won't get rid of them, but can certainly help with them. Okay, I'm going to take out some of this vertical growth with this pole pruner rather than climb around on the ladder quite so much. This is a very convenient tool. Lets me reach places where I can't reach very easily otherwise. But it does have its drawbacks. You can adjust the head to get a better angle for cuts. However, you do tend to leave more stubs and just generally not get as neat of a job. But for hobby orchard work, I find it to be perfectly adequate. All right, I try to keep a vision in my head of how the sun's going to get into these areas. How am I going to get them picked and all of that. All right, we're making progress. Okay, I'm going to climb up into the tree. I think I can get more done quicker that way, as long as I feel secure. I have to get my tools in a position where I can reach them once I get up in there. And everything's very accessible right here. Lots of shoots that need to come out. Things I couldn't reach from my ladder on the other side. I want to have some options for limb development and filling in spaces that I left so wide open when I did the initial pruning. Off they come. Lots of them. I'll have to get those outlying ones with the pole pruner because they're too high to reach otherwise. Okay, I'm going to get my lops out. I can reach a little further with them. Okay, I think I'm going to have to do the rest with the pole. I see there's a few little shoots here growing in toward the center of the tree, and those are undesirable. I'm just finishing up the top work here, the thinning with the pole pruner. There's just a couple more of these little vertical shoots that I'd like to take off, and then we'll be done. And I'm going to say that's enough. That tree is pretty well thinned out. Some of them it's kind of a challenge to get the angle that you want with this pole pruner. But by and large, it's a great time saver. And that does it for the renovation pruning follow-up. It's important to pick up these clippings and dispose of them. You can see that compared to last year, there's just a tiny fraction of the amount of wood removed from the tree. But nevertheless, it is important to get that picked up, and that'll happen on a warmer day when the snow is gone. Well, we've done our second year of the renovation pruning here on this tree. Keep in mind that you'll need to do some more follow-up pruning and then maintenance pruning every year after that. If you want more information and more details about good practices in renovating old apple trees, take a look on the Oregon State University Extension page for a publication called Pruning to Restore a Neglected Old Apple Tree. Penn State Extension also has a good renovation pruning material available online. That's what's up at UPREC, and this is likely my final video in the series. Please stay in touch with UPREC by visiting their website. There will be a continuation of videos from UPREC available there. I'd like to thank everybody for your interest in the What's Up at UPREC video series and in the Michigan State University Upper Peninsula Research and Extension Center. And best wishes to everyone. Across the UP fair, man, bring that frozen air, man. Travel, I've had my share, man. I've been everywhere.